Welcome back to the Blister and Muck podcast. I'm Jenny Mason, your host and the creator of the Blister and Muck series. This week, Muck's in a pickle. How will he deal with it? As you may recall, Muck, Spindle, Horchata, Seltzer, and Rip all turned their furry or feathery backs on Blister. And if you ask me, they seem to have some pretty good reasons. After all, Blister proposed running away from Blaakrust instead of helping defend Madama Putreska's caverns from Dr. Van Sangfreud's ambush. Not only that, Rip exposed how Blister had been hiding the telegram from Muck's family. All this time, Blister worried and fretted that the Furbanks would steal Muck away to Europe, when in fact, they'd invited both rats to the continent. I bet an exotic trip would have delighted Blister to no end. Unfortunately for Blister, jumping to the wrong conclusion is so very typical. And now that Muck has severed all ties with the dishonest Tufttail, he can't exactly dilly-dally. He and Spindle are attempting to relocate Rip when all of Dr. Van Sangfreud's henchmen and henchwomen are hunting for the lisping circus panther. They'd better skedaddle. Ideally, they won't stop to sniff the roses, let alone the daffodils. By that same token, let's dive straight in to this week's riveting episode. I promise I'll stop gherkin your chain. Episode 9. The Last Candle Burning. Muck, Spindle, and Rip rounded the final turns of the spiral staircase when they heard a thundering ruckus in the bell tower above. At first, it was a tumult of indistinct noise, but then they pinpointed the crashing of stacked boxes, the clatter and shatter of candle wax, the shredding of streamers and banners. Muck recalled those exact sounds from the night the wharf rats attacked. He started back up the stairs. Spindle ran from shoulder to shoulder, goading him on.
Don't interfere. He needs time.
Rip's declaration came in a low voice from a deep place within the body. Muck agreed. To mask the storm raging in the belfry, he proposed potential routes to the caverns. Which might be best for Rip, the streets or the sewers? As they spoke, their breath plumed like frosty feathers. The icy liquid moonlight leaked through the many crumbled holes in the cathedral's rooftop, dappling the nave in pale puddles. Rip's nostril slits flared as he scented the air.
Stinks down here.
It's the fetid funk of the crypts down below.
They smell worse than usual.
Just then, Muck thought he saw the gleam of mesh in the moon puddle under his feet. He understood in an instant, but that instant was slow compared to the swift snap of the trap's jaws, sealing shut around him, Rip, and Spindle. Rip shoved at the corners and sides of the cage so hard, his many muscles rippled like pond water tickled by skimmer bugs. He punched his thick fangs through the gaps, biting and gnashing the cage. Spindle dove for a gap in the mesh. He intended to scuttle free, but his bulbous back end lodged tight and he could not escape. Muck also pushed and pried, all to no good effect. Thump skirk, thump skirk. The uneven footsteps issued from the dark chapel. Into a hazy shaft of moonlight, emerged Vexler Q. Drummel. He stopped before the cage, posted his fists on his hips, and said, Cries for help echoed up the stairwell, but they went unheard amidst the tumbling of Candlebox Towers. Destruction aside, the cries still might have gone unnoticed, given the riotous howling, growling, grumbling, and squalling inside Blister's ears at that moment. The noise was so loud, he heard neither the shatter of the thin wooden boxes, nor the candlesticks crack. At first, you and I might only see a tantrum. Blister flew into an angry rampage because his terrible behavior had been revealed. Muck, the pigeons, and Rip shed light on his shame, a light so bright that even he could see his worst self. To unsee it, he would be a wrecking ball to the bell tower. After all, no one sees anything clearly amidst a mess. But if this was all we saw, we'd miss the more important destruction taking place. Therefore, we must look closer and consider the battle of wills raging in Blister at the moment. Two powerful impulses pulled him in opposite directions, much as branches and roots tug trees simultaneously up and down. The branches reach skyward, making a tree big and impressive. The roots tunnel the soil, lending strength and stability to the mighty structure above. The leaves collect the sun's fire, and the roots gather water. To live long and well, a tree must maintain this up-down drive, this balance of fire and water, which may seem impossibly contradictory, but is really complementary. Thus, the deeper roots, the taller the tree, and vice versa. The higher the branches reach, the deeper the roots grow. We work along very similar designs. We are compelled to branch out, to know many people, to acquire lots of skill and knowledge, to be large and impressive. The fires of motivation fuel us. Beneath the surface, we must also root into our true feelings. We must find in ourselves the deep reservoirs of wisdom, joy, and even sorrow, for these pools will quench our lifelong thirsts while supporting our ability to branch out. The deeper we grow in, the greater we grow out. We must balance our in-out water-fire drive. You have probably seen for yourself when these forces are imbalanced. The day a terrible storm of misfortune strikes, some people drown in sorrow, others resort to fiery action or anger. Either extreme is destructive. Too much fire is just as devastating as too much water, which brings us back to Blister and his tempest in the bell tower. Throughout his whole life, Blister had relied on branching out. He kept his roots in check and away from those inner aquifers of deep feeling. Long before this night, he'd known what it was to be surrounded by familiar faces in one instant and completely alone in the next. He'd known what it was to lose a world knitted from comfort, ease, enjoyment, that which we call love. He knew precisely what it was to have that world torn asunder, never to return. He was not going to know that loss again. Not for a second time. Not for an instant. No, sir. However, in that awful moment when he found himself despicable and alone in the belfry, his thirsty roots would not be denied. A taproot shot deep and pierced the old aquifer, and then the battle of wills ensued. If Blister was even remotely hurt at the moment, he told himself It was all to do with forgetting his strict one for one and none for all policy. He had disregarded it for months, and look what happened. Never again would he be such a fool. When Blister finished demolishing the bell tower, he heard the clop of the horse hooves and the rumble of a wagon fading away. He thought nothing of it. He thought only of the one candle left burning. All the others had been extinguished or toppled in the cyclone, but this last one persisted, a lambent eye hovering over the debris. He hated that candle and the disapproving way it seemed to stare at the wreckage of his life. He hated its perseverance and its superior posture, the way it flickered mockingly at him as if to say, "I won't give up, but you will." Blister spat at the candle, and the tower fell dark with a hiss. I think I misspoke earlier when I said Muck was in a pickle. Truthfully, this whole show is facing a terrible dilemma. Several of our heroes are trapped and on their way to be addled in Dr. Van Sangfreud's lab. Blister has descended into self-destruct mode. Worse than all that, the inseparable rats are forever separated. We can't call this show Blister and Muck if there is no Blister and Muck. Maybe we call it Blister or Muck. What about maybe Blister, maybe Muck? No Blister, no Muck. Or the Resentful Rats podcast. Oh, this is hopeless. The show can't go on in this dilapidated state. Does anyone out there have any ideas or advice? Anyone feeling generous or philanthropical enough to share some solutions? If problem solving is your bread and butter, then send an email to contact@blisterandmuck.com. Perhaps I'll just sip some tea while we wait for some heroic listeners to deliver us from this mess. Oh, look, here's an email from... Oh my goodness, it's from Bob Dylan, the Vlasic folk rock legend. Let's see what he has to say. Dear Blister and Muck, I'm a huge fan of the show. Oh, how kind of Mr. Bob to say so. You seem to be in a great deal of trouble, but I'm here to tell you that no problem is too cumbersome to solve. Always look on the bright side of life. Relish the good times and never forget the doorway to hope is always ajar. Sincerely, etc., etc., etc. That advice sounds so wise. It's going to take time and careful deliberation to apply. Tune in next time to find out what happens next on the Maybe Blister or Muck Resentful Rats podcast. In the meantime, you can stop by blisterandmuck.com and use the contact page to tell me what you think will happen, or how you've gotten yourself out of your own past pickles. We can also trade some pickle jokes, more delicious than these. What do you get when you cross an alligator with a pickle? A crocodile. What instrument is most popular in the all-gherkin orchestra? The piccolo. Subscribe to the show at blisterandmuck.com and you'll receive an email alert as soon as the newest episode releases. While you're at the website, you can lend your support to the show by making a donation or selecting an awesome t-shirt, hat, or sweatshirt from the Blister and Muck gift shop. A portion of your purchase helps cover the costs of sound effects, web hosting, music, and more. And enclosed in your gift bag is a special surprise from the entire Blister and Muck crew. Generous listeners are the reason why this show never pauses to play commercials for mind control lip balm, roll-up pianos, fart-blocking blankets, or wax and vac ear cleaners. Another terrific way to support the show is to give it some stars or a positive review on whatever app or platform you use to listen along. Reviews and likes help other listeners discover this madcap caper. Special thanks to Roland Rudzitis for serving up the Blister and Muck theme song. Additional music from John Bartman, Mon Plaisir, and Kevin MacLeod. Bell Tower Destruction sounds from Craig Smith, Unfa, Sounds Exciting, Mike Koenig, Craig Snedeker, and Fionsti. Horse and Wagon sounds from Sake. Namfundo K slurped the tea. Amaro dinged the email inbox. All other sounds from the public domain. I always relish the support I get from my family, friends, and fans. One for one, and all for you.